Welcome back to Public Art 101. This is session number 8. We're going to touch today on installation. Installing anything in the public realm comes with its own set of rules and regulations to ensure public safety and the safety of the property that you're working on. This session will address permits and permissions, health and safety considerations, environmental impact and remediation, and how to build an installation plan. Your installation plan is separate from your detailed design. So you may propose in your detailed design how you plan to install, but honestly, until the work itself is actually fabricated and you have the dates and times, you can't build your installation plan. So it's another plan that comes a little bit later in the process.
We have an obligation to everyone in the community to protect the infrastructure, but we do want the public art in because it's beautiful. It does so much for the city. It's just such a beautiful thing for people to be able to go and experience. So, as much information as you can get on those drawings as possible, please understand where the utilities are. Or even if you can just say, where are the utilities? That in and of itself is a brilliant question. If you want to put in a piece, but you see a catch basin, if there's a catch basin, there's a lot of things happening under the ground. So just ask for support to find the utilities to make sure you have to stay away from all of those. Because if something happens to that utility, we have to go in and fix it. And sometimes that fix has to happen very quickly. If there's a piece in the way, it needs to be moved, right? And we just don't want to have to do that.
So the public realm, it's owned by everybody, it's accessible to everybody. There's a lot of permits and permissions that are required if you are going to work in the public realm. Those things need to be achieved in advance of any installation. So those would be things like a call before you dig, or development and building permits, maybe some road closure permits, which cost money. You want to have any waivers for any volunteers or mentees that you might have on site with you, and you need to consider any bylaw or legal restrictions for anything that you're going to be doing in the public realm.
And there's various types of applications, various levels of applications. So again, you don't need to know all of the names and all the processes, but if you can ask the question, understanding the types of drawing applications that there are, and it's all online as well. You can just go and look. But public art is a little bit different. It doesn't always fit so tidily into one category, which is part of what makes working in public art so fun, really. It is just like being able to have that conversation, but knowing to ask the question is critical. And just ask all of the questions. Don't worry about asking questions. And the first thing I do is I look at the art. I want to know where it is. I go and I look where in the world it is, and I look at the utilities and I look at the grading. And that's the first two things that I always look at. And then I'm like, well, does it need any sort of electrical connection? Does it need any sort of like storm, anything? Because then I have people that I can just touch base with off to the side at the city and confirm things, and everyone appreciates it. You're like, hey, we've got this piece. It's going to be coming in pretty quick. Do I need this application, that application? Then I like to get it in writing just so everyone's on the same page, because you never know like who the application goes in. You might not get that person that you were speaking with because they're on vacation or like life happens, right? But if you have it in writing, then you're able to support the application moving forward.
It's not your job as an artist to understand every single one of the things that you're required to do. It's why you have a project manager and a support team with your project team. However, it is your job as an artist to make sure that you do meet all of these requirements once they've been expressed to you.
It's often the application process that people stumble upon. They can they have their creative vision for their piece, they can execute that, they have the experts to support that work, but then you actually need to get it installed, and in order to get it installed, you have to be working with someone who can have the creative conversation to take the language of the artist and communicate it back over to the approving bodies at the city and help everyone understand, it sounds like a lot, but maybe it's not so much. Like when you actually explain it in people's words that they can understand, it can help expedite the installation process.
There are a lot of health and safety considerations when working in the public realm. Works in the public realm are required to follow sets of stringent regulations that ensure public safety.
Through experience, I find that, again, you can't be too stubborn. And when it comes to those details, they do matter. And it's best to work with people and just ask questions.
Yeah. Or pick what you're going to be stubborn about.
Yeah.
It better be really important.
Yeah. And put it out front right away. And so, like, they know, okay,
So at the end of the day, you are an artist. There are
Yeah.
certain things that are non-negotiable in
Yeah.
artwork, but it can't be every single
No,
thing,
yeah.
especially if certain ones of those are going to cause issues in a public space because they're being interacted
yeah,
with.
safety is a big thing.
There's safety of liabilities. You have, can it blow over in the wind?
Mhm.
So you have to make sure that some of those things are taken care of. But if it's a matter of blue or red, then you better go be stubborn about the color that you
Yeah.
need it to be.
Large-scale installations require a prime contractor who's responsible for overseeing all of these regulations. And that's why you have to bring in a prime contractor, because they know what they are, they can follow all those rules, and they're legally obligated to do it. It's actually better for you if you can bring them in.
So in this process, I had to take extra challenge, which I didn't expect before. Oh, so I needed lots of help in terms of um, uh, delegation. Even most of the elements had to be outsourced beyond my capacity, because there are sculptural elements in the project. So I have to hire some specialists about it, like just to finish the work. And so it was a challenging process, but very, very successful in the other side, because the challenge created different personality in me. I didn't know I was that, stubborn. I didn't know. So that part, opportunity was wonderful. The electrical part had to be done by some companies, and also the signboard, if we say, and also the framing at some point, at some part, and the printing as well, because that specific project had mixed media, so painting, printing, and some frameworks like sculpture, because it's a freestanding items. Most of them are more freestanding. So I had to hire different specialities, just to get to the point I thought was wonderful, was enough.
A prime contractor is expensive, so it's something that usually only happens on the larger scale projects, or when there's really, really difficult installation things such as digging up sidewalks or adding electrical components. If a project is part of an existing capital project, that project is covered under a prime contractor already. So you're adding on to a project that already has an existing contractor in sight, and therefore you don't have to cover those on your own. Ensuring that you know upfront if you're going to need a prime contractor or not is really going to help you with your budgeting process, but also your detailed design process.
You have to make sure that you are safe while you're carrying out the work. If you're using lifts, if you're working at height, you certainly want to have undergone training for all of that, and make sure that all of those risks have been mitigated, and that you've gone through any processes that you need to go through in order to have a decent health and safety plan for that process. For three-dimensional artworks installations, you also need to consider the health and safety of the public, and any risks that the artwork could pose to the public. So climbability, if there's components that could break, or there's sharp elements. I mean, there's so many different factors, and not even just health and safety, but accessibility as well is a big one. That comes down to understanding your site and how people use it and how people interact with it. You want to think about it from a health and safety lens and an accessibility lens.
Environmental impact and remediation is a big consideration in your installation plan. We always want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect the environment, to be as safe as possible. and also ensure that any damage that we cause as a part of the installation is remediated, it's fixed before we leave, so that the entire site is more beautiful at the end than it even began. Environmental impact might include paint dumping, remediation to plants, or ensuring the safety of the types of materials that you use when in the public realm. Your installation plan is the way that you are telling your project team how you're going to ensure that all of these regulations are met and that the safety of the public is ensured. So it is a step-by-step plan that's going to alleviate any concerns, making sure that all these regulations are met. So your installation plan needs to include many things, such as the dates and times of your installation, a key contact on site at all times, all equipment that's going to be on site, how equipment is going to be locked and stored, what the procedures are for ensuring the safety of that equipment and that nobody's going to go for a joyride in the middle of the night. All permits and permissions need to be documented. Safety measures need to be undertaken at all times, and those are safety measures both for the artist and the artist team, the installers, as well as for the public. So those might include safety vests, fencing, cones, signage, anything that's going to protect both the site, the artists, and the public. You want to have some signage to mark the site, to let people know what's going on so that they get excited about the fact that something's actually happening within their community. And you want to have really clear criteria for how materials are being disposed of at the end of each day and at the end of the construction project as a whole. That's it for me on installation plan. This is one of these things that you're going to need help from. You're going to have guidance from all these other people who support you. Again, remember, it may seem arduous. It may seem like an extra step of work that you didn't know you had to do, but it's all there to help protect you, protect the public, and ultimately to make sure that the art project itself is a success, that it goes into the ground really, really well, and with everybody happy along the way.
I mean, most of the time, you've got 1,000 questions you've got to answer, you know. In public art, you've got less because it's restricted. You know exactly how you have to work, where it's going to be, what it's going to measure. You know, everything is really given, you know, and so that it's really, you know, as an artist, within those restrictions, I think if one moves comfortably, the work is a lot easier, you know. One of the things I really love about working in public art is getting that, being part of that collective vision, you know, because everybody has a vision for the site. You've got the architects, you've got and the stakeholders. You know, who's this is the work going to serve? And everybody has especially the architects, they have a very firm idea of what they want, and so that's what you come into, you know, this idea of what everybody else wants, and then so the job as public artist is kind of weave that, and use. We're like directors, you know, orchestra directors. Okay, you've got the traffic going that way, you've got wire here,
Yeah.
you know, you've got these buildings, and how can I weave that into a narrative so that you create, you know, magic for somebody who's just walking through the street? You know, that's basically how I see public art, that opportunity.
Yeah.
In session 9, we're going to talk a little bit more about life cycle and maintenance. So once that artwork is in the ground, how we're going to take care of it for the future.